Next, we're going to look at putting our steel columns and beams in place. And this is just an illustration of what our final product will look like. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll close this down. So one of the things I noticed I made a mistake with on the last one, let me close these windows down here because these won't have been open for you where we left off. On the, if I go to level, the site level, I noticed that I didn't make this bump out 2'6". I made it 2 foot when I was reviewing the videos. So I'm going to quickly correct that. So I'm going to select it and just type 2'6" here. So that's sticking out the correct length. So now we're ready to start placing our steel. We're going to do that on level 1. So if I go to level 1, we have our visualization of our grid. We have a tool that will automatically place our columns at all of these intersections of the grids. So I'm going to go to architecture, select column, structural columns. Mine's going to come up automatically as a 10-inch wide flange, deep flange by 49 pounds per foot. We'll cover a little bit more about that in lecture. If you don't have that, you can go to Insert, and you can go to Load in the Autodesk family, and then you can go to Structural Columns, and select a W shape, a wide flange shape. It's at near the very bottom here, a wide flange column. And when you open that, it'll give you a chance to select all of the different size wide flanges, and you can select the one you want, and then go ahead and insert that. I'll just cancel out because I've already got mine. Now, once we're in the mode of placing this wide flange, we want to make sure we have the right settings for it. One is that it's going up as a height and not down, and it's going up to the top of steel. So we're going from the level we're on, level 1, to top of steel. And now we're going to use that Add Grids tool. And the Add Grids tool just says select all of the grids by making a box. So I'm going to click and drag a large box. I'm going to make sure all of the grid is highlighted. And when I'm done, I'm going to click Complete. Now, if you didn't catch all the grids and you hit Complete and you only have a certain amount of columns, just use the undo command to get backwards a little bit. Get back to where you can do this technique again. Don't try to delete the columns and then reconstruct them. That's just a little too tedious. So I went to the 3D view, so now you can see the placement of all of those columns. Next thing we need to do is place the beams at both the roof and the mezzanine level to support the floor and the roof. So I'm going to go to the mezzanine level to place our columns, or our beams for our to support our mezzanine floor. I'm going to go to structure because that's where our ability to find beams is. Mine's going to come up as a 12 by 26 pounds per foot, 12 inches deep, which is fine. I'm almost ready to place that on the grids, except I want to add in one nuance. I want this to sit 5 inches lower because we're going to put a floor in that is actually 5 inches thick. So I'm going to set this for -5 inches and hit apply. And now I'm ready to set at grids. Once again, I'm going to draw all the grids, click finish, and we'll look at that at the 3D view. And now we have all of our beams to support our mezzanine floor deck. I'll go to the front elevation now. I'm going to go to the south elevation just to illustrate how that floor level beam that we put in place is sitting lower. Now, a couple of things. Whenever you see a screen like this and you see it's not showing everything I've got, I don't see my beams, it could be because the level of detail is not set high enough. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, on the left-hand side, you'll see a detail level, and it's set for coarse. If I click on this, I can set it for fine. And now you'll notice the beams and the columns show up in detail. And you'll notice how these beams are sitting down below that 5 inches as I set when we constructed them. And the reason is that if I was to construct a floor on this mezzanine level, I'm going to go to Architecture, Floor. There is what we're going to use, a 3-inch concrete floor on a 2-inch metal deck. So stacked up together, that'll make a floor that is 5 inches thick. And that means it'll bring, if we place it right on top of the beams, it'll put it right on level, on the mezzanine level perfectly. So I'll cancel out because we're in kind of a subroutine there and we don't actually want to create a floor. And now we're ready to place our final pieces of steel at that roof level or at what we call the top of steel. So I'll go to that level. I'll go to top of steel and we'll go back to structure. We'll grab our structure. We'll grab our beams again and we'll place those at grids, but we want to make sure this time that we don't have it set for -5. We want to set this back to 0 because now we don't really need to accommodate that level. And I'm going to go ahead and make a on grid selection again and draw over all those grids. Once again, if you make a mistake, just undo and retry it again. A warning flag comes up that says it's not visible in the floor plan, and that's okay because we know it's there. So I'll just cancel out of that warning. And we'll snap over to the 3D view so we can see now that we have all of our columns placed. And if we look at the south elevation now, you can see that that column or that beam is now placed right at the top of steel. So our roof will sit actually on top of all of these, as opposed to that mezzanine or floor level where the floor level goes down to 5 inches to accommodate the thickness of the floor. So next we'll look at starting to, well, deal with a couple of issues. One is we have a column without a supported foundation. We need to move some foundation work over there, and then we can start placing some initial walls.